So we've seen a bunch of big NBA trades already go down so far this offseason, and we're seeing teams sell, try to save money, or go all in the 2026 season. And for today's video, I wanted to grade just pretty much the big offseason trades that have happened so far. And we're going to start off with the one that was a big shocker back on Father's Day. It's when Desmond Bane got traded from the Memphis Grizzlies to the Orlando Magic in exchange for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Cole Anthony, the 16th overall pick in the 2025 draft, the swap best between Phoenix and Washington in 2026, Orlando's 2028 first, a 2029 first round swap, top 2 protected, and a 2030 first round pick. An absolute haul draft pick wise for Desmond Bane. For Memphis, I want to give them a B+. I wanted to kind of wait and see what the aftermath was from this trade, and they already flipped the 16th overall pick and that 2028 first rounder to move up on the night of the NBA draft to select Cedric Howard, the 2 guard out of Washington State, who I love next to John Moran and Jaren Jackson Jr. and even Jalen Wells in this offense. Hey, Jalen Wells worked as a Washington State 2 guard back in 2024. Might as well do the same with Cedric Howard here. They also get that very valuable Phoenix first rounder next year. They traded Kevin Durant not too long after this Desmond Bane deal, and Phoenix is projected to miss the playoffs. So this could be a very good first round pick in a loaded 2026 draft. Maybe they flip Cole Anthony. Maybe KCP is a fine enough role player for them. I think Desmond Bane's contract was getting too pricey for them, and they knew they weren't going to contend in 2026 with the Oklahoma City Thunder and some other teams being at the top of the Western Conference. And I'm intrigued to see if Memphis is going to make another major move this offseason or just make moves on the margins. As for Orlando, I'm going to give them an A-. Desmond Bane isn't like a perennial All-NBA player by any means, but we all knew and were very adamant they needed shooting this offseason, so they went out and got a guy that shoots basically 40% from 3 in every single year of his collegiate career and NBA career so far. They did give up hefty draft capital, but honestly, I think Orlando, with Bane, Suggs, Franz, and Paolo in a weaker Eastern Conference, is never going to be picking in the lottery, so those aren't going to be super valuable first-round picks outside of that Suns first-rounder in 2026. They didn't give up any valuable players either. Cole Anthony was basically a third-string point guard with Anthony Black and Jalen Suggs going forward, and KCP was a disaster in his first year in Orlando. I'm going to give them an A- though. I love them being aggressive and realizing how wide open the East is next year, even before the Halliburton injury, that they can go out and get Desmond Bane. They're going to go deep into the first apron, maybe even to the second apron. I love Orlando being aggressive. It's getting an A-, and Desmond Bane is under contract for the next few years, so they got this core 4 under control for the next half decade. Next up, I want to talk about the first of a Boston Celtics sell-off, and they traded away Jrue Holiday, who was a vital part to their 2024 championship team, to the Portland Trailblazers. A little bit of a shocker there in exchange for Anthony Simons and 2 second-rounders. For Boston, I think this is a really good return for them because Anthony Simons is a great 3-point shooter. He could be a great scoring guard for them, and if it's a disaster this year, he's an expiring contract. $27 million is going to be off the books at the end of this year. They didn't take back any long-term salary in exchange for Jrue Holiday, who's got 3 massive years left at $30 million a year under his current deal. They weren't going to be great in 26 with the Tatum injury, and they saved so much money in the luxury tax for the new ownership with this deal. They even got some seconds out of this. I'm going to give it a B+ for Boston. As for Portland, I'm going to give this a B. So Jrue Holiday is making a lot more money than Simons. I was adamant they should have traded Anthony Simons for more touches for Scoot Henderson, and Jrue Holiday is going to be a great mentor, and Chauncey Billups is going to love having his defensive identity for them. Jeremy Grant and Jrue Holiday making over $70 million combined for the next 3 years is an interesting choice when you're not a tier 1 team in the West, maybe not a tier 2 team. Maybe they're a tier 3 team. Maybe they can become a tier 2 team this year, given how great they played in the second half last year. I would have been a little bit more excited if he went to a team with higher championship odds, but I do think he's going to be a nice identity change shifter for the Trailblazers. I'll give them a B for this deal. And the Boston Celtics made another trade as well when they sent out Kristaps Porzingis to the Atlanta Hawks. They got back Georges Niang and a second-round pick. The Hawks received a second-rounder as well, but to get Kristaps Porzingis, Brooklyn ended up getting Terrence Mann's contract to free up some money for the Atlanta Hawks, but they also got the 22nd overall pick in the draft to select Drake Powell for doing so. I'm going to start off with the Boston Celtics side of things. I'm going to give them a C, at least for Jrue Holiday. An Anthony Simons type return player is an intriguing piece to have. He's still young. He's got upside this year, and playing in a new system, he could become maybe a 20-point per game scorer next to Jaylen Brown with no Tatum there in Boston. But Georges Niang, I know the Celtics fans don't like him a lot. He's not a great defender. He does become a serviceable wing shooter for you, but it's just not a great return for Kristaps in my opinion, although I do know they needed to trade him. They saved $180 million against the luxury tax with this deal. For Brooklyn, Brooklyn, though, them getting involved in this deal, Terrence Mann was a really good player and a solid shooter in the second half after getting traded from LA to Atlanta. I'm going to give them an A. They basically got a free first-round pick, the Sean Marks special, take on some bad money, and you can draft a new first-rounder. The Nets ended up making 5 first-round picks. That's a different story for a different video, but I like the upside of Drake Powell. They basically got it for taking on Terrence Mann. I think just them getting involved as rebuilding teams should. Take on some bad money, get some draft capital. It's an A. And then for Atlanta, I'm going to give them a B for this deal. There's definitely some risk to this because Kristaps Porzingis has had his injury concerns. Last year, he did not look great for Boston in the second half or in the playoffs. But Kristaps in his last contract year back in Washington averaged 23 points a night, the pick and pop. With Trae Young and Kristaps Porzingis can be so lethal on the perimeter. Given how elite both of those guys are from three-point range, they need an upgrade too as a rim protector, and he can play out there with a Kungwu because both of them can space the floor. I think this can be one of the best moves in a year from now that we look back on this offseason, but Kristaps needs to be healthy. And then we had a noticeable draft night trade. I'm not going to talk about any of the individual ones like the Derek Queen type trade, but we did have the Phoenix Suns going out and getting Mark Williams in exchange for Vasily Micic, who's going back to the Hornets after getting traded in that Yousef Nerkage deal. Liam McNeely, who's the 29th overall pick, the Phoenix's first rounder, and a 2029 least favorable first between Cleveland, Utah, and Minnesota. I'd like to think one of those teams will be good in 2029, so it's not going to be a super valuable first round pick. It was definitely questionable when it happened, but I do see Charlotte's vision. I like them adding Liam McNeely. They tried trading Mark Williams at the deadline last year. Clearly, they didn't want to extend him this offseason or had any plans on extending him after the 4th year the team option ran up. So they got the 29th pick. They got a future first rounder. They can use that asset as well. I like the value of Liam McNeely at 29, given that I had him ranked 20th on my big board. They need more shooting. So I'm going to give Charlotte a B for this trade. As for Phoenix, I'm going to give them a B+. Now, did they really need to add Kaman Maluach at 10 and Mark Williams with Nick Richards already on the roster? Probably not, but I think Mark Williams has great upside in a winning environment. Not going to say Phoenix is going to be great next year, but they should be better than what Charlotte has been over the last few years since Mark Williams has been drafted. He's going to get some great looks inside, playing off with Devin Booker and Jalen Green and Bradley Beal there in Phoenix. And he's basically a double-double machine at the 5 spot. Their center depth at one point last year was like Mason Plumlee, Yousef Nerkage, Bol. This looks completely different now with them getting Kaman Maluach at 10 and trading for Mark Williams. Gonna give Phoenix that B+. And then definitely a shocking trade happened between the Pelicans and the Washington Wizards before the draft, where the Pelicans acquired Jordan Poole, Saddiq Bey, and the 40th overall pick that they used on Micah Peavy from Georgetown in exchange for CJ McCollum, Kelly Olynyk, and a future second rounder. As for Washington, I love this trade for them. They cleared up an additional $30 million to have almost a blank cap sheet outside of rookies for the 2026 offseason. Jordan Poole was going to be somebody that wanted to take a lot of shots in Washington next year. Now you can allow Trey Johnson, Bub Carrington, Alex Sarr to get more looks. CJ McCollum is going to be another great veteran with Marcus Smart and Chris Middleton into the fold to mentor the young core over there in the nation's capital. And McCollum was also a good scorer last year as well. They were also able to get Kelly Olynyk. The big man depth on this team wasn't great, and Olynyk could be Jonas Valanciunas 2.0 for them. They can get a couple seconds for him this year at the deadline. And who knows, maybe they could trade CJ McCollum at the deadline as well, given that he was an elite three-point shooter at times last year for the Pelicans. So yeah, giving them an A-, basically costing you the 40th overall pick to get off of that Jordan Poole money when we thought that contract was untradeable last offseason is a job well done by Will Dawkins. And for New Orleans, I'm going to give them a B- for this deal. I thought it was a little bit of a head scratcher. You already had DeJounte Murray under contract. He's going to be out for a little bit. You drafted Jeremiah Fears at number 7. I don't really know how I feel about Jordan Poole in New Orleans. He's just going to be one of the mentors there for Fears and Derek Queen. How is his connection with Zion going to look? I know he was a lot more efficient last year. I just don't know if it's worth it taking on that contract, and I'd rather just have CJ McCollum's expiring. I like them taking a flyer on Saddiq Bey. They're going to have a ton of wing depth this year with Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, and Jordan Hawkins in the mix. They got PV, who I'm a big fan of, with the 40th overall pick. I just feel like it's a weird team building dynamic from Joe Dumars in New Orleans. It could work out, but it very well could not work out next year. I'm going to be very interested to see how this unfolds in the 2026 season. We saw a smaller deal go down the other day between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Chicago Bulls when they basically just swapped players. Isaac Okoro for Lonzo Ball. I love this deal for Cleveland. It kind of hinted at the idea that they're not going to be able to afford to bring back Ty Jerome this offseason, and we definitely got that vibe after they extended Sam Merrill. But I'd rather them take a chance on Lonzo Ball, who is a team option after this year. So hey, if he can't stay healthy this year, if he doesn't look great, they could decline it. And they already saved money between Okoro and Lonzo's contract with this deal originally. I got to give them an A for this. I love them having at least the upside swing here in Lonzo Ball, who could maybe be the Alex Caruso 2.0 from a Bulls guard trade. And now having Lonzo Ball, rookie Tyrese Proctor and Craig Porter Jr. as your backup point guards behind Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland looks a lot better than the risk what could have happened if they weren't able to bring back Ty Jerome and they didn't make a trade like this. As for Chicago, I think it's just kind of questionable. Apparently, they could have gotten a first-round pick back at the deadline for Lonzo Ball. They take a flyer on Isaac Okoro, who was a good shooter throughout the regular season in 2025, but yet again could not show up in the playoffs. He could not hit shots whatsoever. I'm going to give them a C. They definitely needed more wings and less guards, so I like that swing there. He's a solid player. I don't think this is going to look as bad as the Alex Caruso trade. I just never really can know what Chicago wants to do. Next up, we have a really weird trade that went down right before free agency started, where the Utah Jazz acquired Yousef Nerkage in exchange for Colin Sexton and a 2030 second-round pick. I thought there was a really good chance at one point Utah could have gotten a first-round pick for Sexton. For Utah, I'm going to give them a D for this deal. I don't love Yousef Nerkage here, and you had to give up a second-round pick in this deal as well. The only reason why it's not an F is because it's going to allow for more shots to Keontae George, Isaiah Collier, Ace Bailey, Bryce Sensabaugh, Cody Williams, and Walton Clayton Jr. After they bought out Jordan Clarkson as well, it's a new era of shot making over there in Utah. And for Charlotte, I'm going to give them an A for this deal. It basically just cost them salary matching, and they got a second rounder for taking on Colin Sexton for a team that desperately needs more guard depth, more shooting depth. Last year, they were one of the worst offensive teams, especially when Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball were hurt. Colin Sexton really isn't stealing shots from anybody right now. I don't think they're super high, so I really like this trade for the Hornets. And then we had a deal that went down at the start of free agency. The Brooklyn Nets finally traded away Cam Johnson. They sent him off to the Denver Nuggets in exchange for Michael Porter Jr. and an unprotected 2032 first-round pick. For the Brooklyn Nets, I'm going to give them a B here. It's going to be fascinating to watch Michael Porter Jr. and Cam Thomas share the floor together next year, but this is what rebuilding teams should do. Take on bad money and get a future first-round pick. I would have preferred if they moved Cam Johnson maybe last offseason or at the deadline. They didn't have to take back as bad of a contract as Michael Porter Jr., who's making over $70 million for the next 2 seasons. But I'm going to give them a B here. That Denver 2032 first-round pick unprotected could be very intriguing with Nikola Jokic being 37 years old then. As for the Denver Nuggets, I'm going to give them an A here. I think Cam Johnson fits this offense and the fluidity of it under David Adelman so much more than Michael Porter Jr. He's going to be able to move off screens. He's a better playmaker, and he's been more available over the years as well. So I'm going to give them an A here just because I think this makes them even better for a team last year that took the Oklahoma City Thunder, the team that won it all, to Game 7 of round number 2. I think Denver could be right back in the thick of things next year in the Western Conference title picture. And lastly, let's talk about the Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets trade that sent KD to Houston in exchange for Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, the 10th overall pick, which we know ended up being Kaman Maluach, and 5 second rounders, which could definitely be useful to Phoenix. They used some of those on the night of the 2025 draft to end up with guys like Rasheer Fleming and Kobe Brea. Like those additions for them. We'll start off with Phoenix. I'm going to give them a B- here. It stinks to obviously trade Kevin Durant for way less than what you acquired him for back at the 23 deadline. I didn't mind this return as much as some people did. I think it's worth it to take a chance on Jalen Green, especially if they could find a different home for Bradley Beal. I love them getting Dylan Brooks. This team needs to be good over the next few years since they don't own the direction of their draft capital. Dylan Brooks can help them throughout the regular season. You use the 10th overall pick to get the best big man in the NBA draft in Kaman Maluach, a position of need going forward, and those second rounders can help you as well. Gonna give them a B- though. I don't think it's the perfect return. You didn't get a Reed Shepard or Cam Whitmore or Jabari Smith Jr., but I still think they made out all right. But for Houston, I'm giving them an A+. I gave the Desmond Bane an A- because I like the aggression, and I think he could put them over a hump. Kevin Durant can help you win a title. Houston was the 2 seed last year with an incredibly young roster, with an incredibly young trio of Jalen Green, Şengün, and Amen Thompson. Now they're basically just swapping Green and Brooks for Kevin Durant, one of the best scorers in the NBA, who could put up 26 points on 50, 40, 90 splits. Now they got the number 1 option. They can let Cook down in the 4th quarter when it's clutch. He's one of the best isolation scorers, and this is probably one of Kevin Durant's best teams since maybe the 2021 Nets, because he's got an elite playmaking center in Alperen Şengün, one of the best young players in the NBA on both ends in Amen Thompson, a good veteran point guard in Fred VanVleet, an elite off-the-bench defender in Tari Eason, the upside of Reed Shepard, Cam Whitmore if he's still on the team, and Jabari Smith Jr. They re-signed Steven Adams. They had their mid-level this offseason. The Rockets could definitely rival the Oklahoma City Thunder in the playoffs next year with Kevin Durant. I love the aggression by Raphael Stone in the front office. I'm going to give them an A+ for this deal. So that is going to be it for me. Hope you guys did enjoy this video. Let me know what you would grade some of these trades down below. Do you agree with what I said? Do you disagree? Let me know. Drop a thumbs up if you did enjoy. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.